No face, no name. Nobody remembered he existed.
There are things in this world that disappear without ever being remembered. Like fallen leaves, like rainwater, like wind. If no one ever called your name, if no one ever remembered your face, will you ever truly hear it all? This is a story from a small market village in Jeolla province at the end of the Joseon Dynasty. In that year, when the summer heat refused to die, something appeared in the village, something with no face. That summer, the market town in Jeolla province was as loud and lively as any other year. On market days, held every 5 days, people flooded in from neighboring villages. The alleyways were thick with the smell of mashioli rice, wine, raw fish, and sizzling oil. Everywhere, the chaotic energy of the living. Right in the middle of the market stood a simple gukbap restaurant. Its owner was Dal, a heavy-set man nearing 50. Loud voice, easy laugh, sharp with numbers. There wasn't a soul in the village who didn't know his face. Dal's restaurant never emptied from morning to night. Welcome, welcome. 1 bowl of gukbap, 1 cup of rice wine, what more could a man want from this world? He greeted every customer the same way. Dal was not a man who believed in ghosts. Whenever talk turned to shamans or spirits, he'd snort and wave his hand. Bah! That's all just bad eyesight and weak nerves. Ghosts. People are scarier than any ghost. The night Dal met the egg ghost. It was late in that sweltering summer. It was past the 2nd watch of night when Dal finally closed his shop. He walked home, holding his paper lantern. Hot as the summer nights were, at least there was a faint breeze after midnight. He'd downed 2 bowls of leftover macchioli by himself and was in good spirits. He was humming to himself when he passed through the village entrance. And there, beside the old zelkova tree, someone was standing. At first, Dal paid it no mind. Probably someone relieving themselves, he thought. But something was wrong. The figure didn't move, not when the breeze blew, not when Dal's footsteps drew closer. It just stood there. Dal stopped. Hey, who's there? Silence. He raised his lantern and froze. There was no face, no eyes, no nose, no mouth, just smooth, pale, featureless skin, like the surface of an egg. Dal's lantern trembled. His hands were shaking. The figure slowly turned its head toward him. Even without eyes, Dal felt it looking at him. Every hair on his body stood up. His stomach turned inside out. He couldn't even scream. He simply collapsed where he stood. The next morning, it was the tofu delivery man out before dawn who found Dal. He was sprawled beneath the zelkova tree, still breathing. But when they woke him, his hair had gone completely white overnight. Every single strand. After that night, Dal never went outside alone after dark again. The village began to murmur, but Dal was not the first. Days before Dal's encounter, the village schoolteacher Choi had met it on an evening walk along the rice paddy path. The learned man wet himself. Knowledge offers no defense against pure terror. He spent 3 days bedridden afterward. There was also Dongi, a 15-year-old delivery boy for the medicine shop. He encountered it on the back path of the village and ran. But Dongi had noticed something that others hadn't. It didn't chase me, he said. I looked back while I was running, and it was just standing there. But you know what, Auntie? He lowered his voice. If it had no face, why did it look so sad? The village headman called everyone together. The egg ghost has appeared. The room erupted. The egg ghost. Everyone knew the name from old stories told to frighten children. No one had ever believed it was real. We need to call a shaman. What can a shaman do? We need an exorcist. What about a Buddhist monk? Voices overlapped. Arguments broke out. Then one old man spoke quietly. Go to Bokrai. The room fell silent. At the edge of the village, beside a bamboo grove, stood Bokrai's house. Bokrai, a woman of about 40, the villagers called her a shaman, though she disliked the title. She didn't perform elaborate gut rituals or shake ceremonial bells. She simply sat quietly, listened to people's troubles, read fortunes, and occasionally wrote a charm. And sometimes she saw things that living eyes were not meant to see. When the headman finished speaking, Bokrai was silent for a long time. She held her tea bowl in both hands, her gaze distant, thinking. The headman asked nervously, "Can you do something? Can you drive it away?" Bokrai spoke slowly. "The egg ghost cannot be driven away." "What? It's not that kind of spirit. It has no grudge, no desire for revenge, no lingering injustice." Her eyes deepened. "It is simply a ghost that no one ever knew existed." Bokrai explained slowly what she understood. "Do you know what it means to have no face? It means to have no name. It means no one ever called this person's name. No one ever truly looked at their face." Her voice dropped. "A person who was born into this world but never existed within it. A ghost with not a single person left who remembers them. Such a ghost has no grudge to resolve because there is no grudge. They were simply left behind in empty air." The headman fell quiet. "Then what do we do?" "We find out who this ghost was when they were alive." That night, Bokrai went out alone. She visited each place the egg ghost had appeared. The zelkova tree, the rice paddy path, the back alley. She didn't just look with her eyes. She breathed the air, felt its texture, read the energy of the ground through the soles of her feet. Spirits like this don't need to be summoned. They're already there. You simply wait, and they come. It was when she stopped at the village well. A chill crept up from behind her. Bokrai turned slowly. There it was, standing in the moonlight. White cotton clothes, normal height, normal hands and feet. But where a face should have been only a smooth, pale surface, like an egg. Bokrai did not run. She felt fear. Of course she did. But beneath the fear, she felt something else entirely. Loneliness. The strongest energy radiating from this ghost was not hostility, not resentment, just loneliness. Ancient and unspeakably deep. "So you're the egg ghost." No answer. It had no mouth. "Do you have a name?" Silence. "How long have you been here, in this village?" Nothing. And yet Bokrai felt it that this ghost was listening to every word. Desperately. It wanted to speak but had no mouth. It wanted to express itself but had no face. Bokrai stood there for a long time. The ghost stood there for a long time. Only the wind passed between them. When Bokrai finally went home, she couldn't sleep until morning came. Bokrai began searching records, village household registries, memorial records, old community ledgers, but finding traces of someone who had lived and died without a name, it was impossible from the start. If a name wasn't in the documents, it meant the world had decided this person didn't exist. Bokrai decided to seek out people instead, the oldest people, those with the oldest memories. The oldest person in the village was Cheon-seok, 82 years old. When Bokrai visited and brought up the egg ghost, the old man's face tightened. "There was a child like that," he said in a slow, low voice. "The name, what was the name?" He squinted, reaching back. "I can't remember. Nobody ever called it by name. Everyone just said, 'that child.' That child over there." What the old man remembered was this: a child who lived in the house of the village fortune teller. No one knew when it had arrived. One morning it was simply there abandoned on the old man's doorstep. Nobody knew the parents. Nobody knew where the child came from. The old fortune teller took it in, but barely fed it. Never gave it a name. Just used it for errands. The child had a large red birthmark on one cheek. So the village children mocked it, gave it nicknames, called it ugly, called it dirty. Adults, when they passed by, looked away. No one ever took that child's side. The adults were busy with their own lives. The children were cruel. They say the child never cried. No matter how many times it was beaten, no matter how many times it was mocked, it would just come back and sit quietly, eyes closed, as if it were trying to erase itself from the world. The old man was silent for a long time. I mocked it too, he said. His voice was low. Back then, I didn't even know it was wrong. Everyone did it. So I thought it was just how things were. I never once thought about what that child might have felt. Bokrai asked quietly, "What happened to that child?" The old man's hands trembled on his knees. One summer it disappeared. Nobody searched for it. No one searched. The old fortune-teller only grumbled about losing his errand runner. The villagers didn't even notice. The child had been gone long before it physically disappeared. Bokrai walked out of the old man's house with her hands clenched. Born without a name, lived without a name, vanished without a name. Of course, the ghost had no face. The world had never truly looked at it. Bokrai returned home and picked up her brush. She thought for a long time. Giving a name is not a small thing. For the living, a name is destiny itself. To give a name to a ghost who died nameless. She dipped her brush in ink and slowly wrote, "Soon eat." A name meaning come into this world gently and leave it gently. A name that said you suffered enough, while living let your passing be peaceful. The ink soaked into the paper. Bokrai stared at that name for a long time. Bokrai prepared an offering, nothing elaborate. A bowl of white rice, a cup of clear water, a simple soup. For a child who had probably never eaten a proper meal in its life, she wanted to offer at least one. She placed the paper with the name Suni beside the offerings. "Before you go, someone needs to call your name at least once," she murmured. It was a full moon night. Bokrai carried the offering tray to the village well. This time she didn't wait for the ghost to appear. Bokrai called first, "Suni." For the first time, that name was spoken aloud. The wind stopped. Every sound around her faded the insects, the distant barking of dogs. And from the darkness beside the well, slowly a shape appeared. The egg ghost was near, but it was different this time. Before, it had simply stood there, heavy, like darkness itself. But now just slightly the figure leaned toward Bokrai. Like a child who has heard its name called and leans forward without even realizing it. Bokrai set down the offering tray. "Suni," she called the name again. "Come here and eat." The ghost walked slowly forward. It crouched down before the offering. It faced the bowl of rice. Without a face, no expression could be read. But Bokrai felt it. How unfamiliar this moment must be for this child. How long since it had last sat before a meal someone prepared for it. Or perhaps it had never experienced this, not once, in its entire life. The rice began to diminish, slowly, a little at a time. Bokrai said nothing. She just watched. The last spoonful disappeared, and in that moment it began. Something started to form on the ghost's face. Faint, barely there. Like a shape emerging from deep fog. Where eyes should be, a line appeared. Not eyes yet, but the beginning of eyes. Bokrai held her breath. Not yet. There's still one more thing. A name alone was not enough. Bokrai knew this. For the egg ghost to gain a face, someone among the living had to truly remember that child. With sincerity, with real memory, she went back to old man Cheon-suk, and she went to others. Every person who had ever known that child. She visited them one by one. Everyone was uncomfortable at first. They said it was long ago. Said they barely remembered. Said they hadn't done anything truly wrong. Bokrai didn't raise her voice. She simply asked, quietly, "Do you know what that child's name was? Do you know where that child came from? Can you remember what expression was on that child's face at the end? No one could answer. That was the answer. Old man Cheon-seok wept. An 82-year-old man, weeping over something that happened more than 50 years ago. I was wrong, he said. The first time he had ever said those words about this. I never once told that child I was sorry. When it disappeared, I should have looked for it. Just once. But I did nothing. Bakrai said, "You're saying it now. What use is it now? It matters." She held his hands. That child is listening. That evening, Bakrai brought the villagers who had known the child to gather beneath the zelkova tree. She didn't ask for anything elaborate. Just come and stand here and remember that child. The face each of you had turned away from, inside your own memories. The people came, awkwardly, uncomfortably, but they came. The full moon rose above the zelkova tree, and among the people, in the moonlight, the egg ghost appeared. But this time it was different. Before, it had seemed adult-sized, heavy and dark. But now the ghost was small, the size of a child. Bakrai said Sunai, and old Cheon-seok, in a trembling voice, repeated it. Suni, Bongdal called the name. Teacher Choi called the name. One by one, Suni. In that moment, eyes appeared on the child's face. Eyes appeared, small dark eyes, full of tears. A nose appeared, and then a mouth. It was a child's face, a face no older than 9 or 10, with a large red birthmark on one cheek. The child looked at the gathered people with that face, as if seeing them for the first time truly, as if being truly seen for the first time. The villagers began to weep. Bakrai bent her knees and crouched down to the child's level. She looked Sunai in the eyes. Suni, you were frightened, weren't you? The child blinked. You were so lonely. Tears rolled down the child's face. A ghost's tears shine like moonlight. It's all right now. There are people who remember you. Old Cheon-seok stepped forward, slowly, leaning on his cane. He stood before the child and bowed his head, deeply. An 82-year-old man, bowing before the ghost of a child. "I'm sorry," he said. His voice shook. "I should have called your name long ago. I should have been on your side. This old man failed you. I'm truly sorry, Sune." The child looked at him for a long time and then slowly shook its head. It meant it's all right. They stepped forward one by one. Bongdal stood before the child, white hair, tears streaming. Teacher Choi stood before the child, his dignity set aside, just a man. The others came. No words were needed. They simply looked. They were doing now what they had never done while the child lived, truly looking at that face. The child received each of them. Light began to emanate from the child's body, a light shining from within. Soon, I looked down at its own hands, watched them glow. There was an expression on the child's face, wonder, not fear. This child, who had never once looked at itself without shame while alive, was looking at itself for the first time. Bakrai said quietly, "It's time to go, Suni." The child looked up at Bakrai. No words. Even with a mouth, it seemed not to know what to say. Words weren't needed. Bakrai read everything in those eyes. Gratitude, peace, and just a little the sadness of leaving. Bakrai smiled. Tears fell, but she smiled. "Go well." The child began to walk, past the zelkova tree, past the well, through the village entrance, into the moonlight. With each step, the form grew brighter. 2 steps, 3 steps. The child did not look back, but the silhouette visible in those final moments, it was dignified. Shoulders that had never been held straight in life were straight now. Zelkova leaves fell in a cascade, dissolving into moonlight, and the child was gone. After that night, the egg ghost never appeared again. By morning, a single flower had bloomed beside the village well. No one had planted it. From that year on, Bongdal began giving free gukbap to the children at the market, especially the ones who came alone. Old Cheon-seok did not survive that winter. His last words were these: "She got there all right. That child." Bokrai buried the paper with the name written on it beneath the zelkova tree, in place of a grave, for a child who had none. And every year, as summer ended, someone left a bowl of rice beneath that tree. No one knew who started it. When the village children asked why, the adults would answer: "A child who lived in this village long ago. Her name was Suni. There are things in this world that disappear without ever being remembered. But also, there are things in this world that are remembered even if late. That is why names matter. That is why calling out to someone matters. That is why truly looking at another person's face matters." While they are still here, they say that the zelkova tree still stands at the village entrance. And they say that when summer ends on evenings when the wind dies down, somewhere beneath that tree, you can hear the faintest, lightest sound of footsteps, like a child at play. This is the story that has been passed down.